11th of February, 1 o'clock until 3 o'clock, and it's a Zoom setup.
It's a Zoom meeting?
Yes.
Okay. Excellent.
11th of February, 1 o'clock until 3 o'clock, it's a Zoom setup.
It's a Zoom meeting?
Yes.
Okay. Excellent.
11th of February.
There we go. When we launched the live streaming on YouTube, we have a little bit of an overlay of audio. I think that's what happened there.
Sorry, I should have been muted and then you wouldn't have known that.
Well, you know, that's okay. More than okay.
We should be good to go.
All right, thank you.
So
Madam Chair,
is this everyone, Dawn?
yes, it is.
Okay. We're 1 minute ahead of schedule. Since we're all here, I'll call a meeting to order. Thanks everyone for signing on tonight. We're doing a little bit early, but it'll be nice to have, I guess, our evenings to do as we please. The first thing on the agenda is to approve the approval of the agenda. So I'll take a mover and a seconder for that.
So moved, Judy.
Seconder, Bob Powell.
It's been moved and seconded. Everyone ready for the question?
Question?
All in favor, by saying aye.
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 Contrary minded, motion carried. Is there any conflict of interest to declare this evening? Any conflict of interest? Let's take that as a no. Up next, we'll have the staff report, the 2021 bylaw changes.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
So every year, we keep kind of track of something that we might stub our toe in on the in our procedural bylaw, and it's part of a continuous improvement effort. This year we've identified really just some housekeeping items that we think should be tidied up in the bylaw. And so typically what we do is we circulate a document that has 3 columns. It shows what the bylaw is today, and it strikes out what we want to change. And in the next column, the center column, is what as staff we are suggesting. And then finally, the third column over sort of speaks about why. So with that introduction, I'll go through the relatively few changes that we think are appropriate this year. And the first deals with something that happens from time to time, and that is the Robert's Rules of Order people are continually, I guess, really doing the same thing that we're doing with our bylaws. They're getting feedback from around the world with respect to how their rules work for organizations. And so in this year, they have published the 12th edition of their rules. And our bylaws specifically reference the 11th edition. And you can see there where it's struck out in column 1, where we talk about ensuring, this is Kelly, the secretary, ensuring that the minutes are taken in accordance with the 11th edition of Robert's Rules of Order, and it quotes a chapter and a section. So we're proposing that just be changed to saying that the 12th edition and eliminating the chapter and section reference so that when the 13th edition comes out, it'll be a simpler change. And I guess a little background as to why we were so specific. In the first term of the board, there was a director who believed that anything that he said during the meeting should be reflected in the minutes. And we continued to make the case, well, you know, that's not how minutes are done. And anyway, the director didn't, you know, it was like a merry-go-round. We weren't making any progress of it. And so one year, I think the third year or the second year, we made that specific reference. We don't really need that anymore. And so we see that as a housekeeping item. And if there are any, I'll stop there. With each one, I'll stop and see if there are any questions that we can respond to. Okay, I'll assume that that's clear, but I won't presume that you're on side with it until we finish. The next item, we're going to have a couple of changes that have been influenced by COVID and our response to COVID. And the first one has to do with the annual resolution that the board passes identifying its meetings for the coming year. Right now, it says, that we pass a resolution that specifies a time where the meeting will be held here on Prospect Street. And so we've struck that out, and we're suggesting that the new clause say simply that we'll hold the meetings at a time and a place, and then it makes a specific reference to including virtual meetings specified in the resolution. And so what we're driving at there is that trying to clean up the language to suggest that, well, meetings don't have to be held here on Prospect Street. There could be a meeting that if we thought of a large amount of the public was going to come out to one of our meetings, we would do what Pratt used to do before it was virtual. And we would rent a room at the Fredericton Inn or the Ramada or somewhere like that so that we would have the capacity for it. But we also thought that it was important to make a specific reference to virtual meetings because we don't expect to see them go away entirely in the future, even after COVID. So I'm thinking that's reasonably clear. And the next page, when we flip over, section 5.6, currently, and remember this was drafted in 2012, the bylaw said that at the discretion of the chair, someone could attend electronically if everyone at the meeting could hear. And so really what that meant was you need the chair's permission to not physically be there. Well, the world has changed, most particularly now. And so our feeling is that it's the directors should have the right to attend virtually if they wish. It saves us from, okay, what's the snow band like through Stanley and Millville? While Gagetown might be able to get in with no problem, we really don't want a situation where, in theory, you need the chair's approval. So what we're saying, we would strike that out and have a section that says directors may participate in meetings by electronic means, so long as all members in the meeting can hear everybody. So just making it clear that it's your right if that's your wish. And then finally, when it talks about public access to the board meeting, we're suggesting that we add one sentence that says, in the event of the meeting, okay, I'm going to make an edit on the fly here. I want to change that to, in the event the meeting, get rid of that, is taking place virtually, public access shall be provided by live webcast, which is what we're doing now. And so that's our default way of having people be able to see and hear your public debates and your decisions. So that's the last change that we've identified here. And if you folks are okay with all of that, if the directors or the committee's okay with all of that, we would include that in your report to the board and put a new procedural bylaw to the board at the annual general meeting.
I think they're definitely warranted changes with the times and with the way that we're conducting business now, that it makes it within the guidelines.
You want a motion on that, Don?
I don't think so. I think the indication that the committee's on side is fine. I would also ask, now that we finished that, I have one other thing to suggest to the bylaw, and it's something to change throughout it all. And it's just a similar word, just a single word, and it deals with how we describe you. Right now, our bylaw refers to you as members. of the board. And I'd like to change that. I'd like to call you directors in the bylaw. And the reason for that is just to be clear, because the Regional Service Delivery Act is quite clear that the members of the commission are actually the communities. So a member of a council is called a councillor, and I think a member of the board of directors should be called a director. And so I'd like to clean that language up if you folks have no objection to that.
No problem.
No objections here.
No
All right.
objection here.
All right with me.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
Perfect. And so the no other questions with the proposed bylaw changes? We're confident with sending that to the board in a couple weeks. If not, we'll move on to number 5, which is the staff report, board self-assessment in 2021 orientation, which I believe is also Dawn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So in the past, we have taken this time of the year to survey the board. We've done it in a number of ways. We've had a series of questions where you answer 1 to 5, indicating your agreement. We've had more open-ended surveys, all of which are designed to try and continue to be a more cohesive, higher functioning team. And this year was a year of a significant change, and we all had to adapt. But our view as staff is that we should spend this time making sure that we prepare properly for the new board that will come in May. And we anticipate that there will be new people on the board, not because you folks won't necessarily be returned in an election. Some of you won't run. We can anticipate that we'll have perhaps some turnover from the unincorporated representatives. So we thought that we want to make that the best thing that we could do would be to prepare this board, who are going to, take their seats in June, and then almost immediately have to deal with, a $14 million budget with kind of no context. We want to make sure that they're well positioned to do that. And so I'd ask you while we're talking tonight to kind of think back to when you came on the board and what you thought of the orientation that you received. Most of you, almost all of you, with the exception of the chair, participated in the group sessions. But Erica, you came on midterm, and so you had an individual meeting, which gave you information, but wasn't really part of launching a kind of team building and inclusiveness effort. So what we did, just to review what we did back in 2016, we distributed the handbook and we presented it at a high level. We circulated our orientation manual that we prepared that's specific to our region, and it has a lot of how-to things in it. How to submit an expense claim, how our individual RSC operates. We reviewed the videos that were prepared that are on our website, which is, I forget the title of them, but there's 7 of them, and they're all about different, really, it follows, mirrors along the handbook. And then we did a couple of workshops. We did one on operations, where Solid Waste gave I thought, a pretty thorough presentation of their business. Planning did the same thing, and then we looked at the governance side of things. And in the history of our commission, we've kind of looked at we've studied 2 books. And the first one is Our Iceberg is Melting. And we did that in the first term, and just to review, to refresh your memory, Our Iceberg is Melting is kind of a fable about these penguins that live on an iceberg, and one guy observes, ooh, this iceberg's about to sink. It's not viable. He talks about the different personalities personality types that encounter change, and the ones that are typically keen about it and the ones that are resistant. And the second one was the 13 Ways and the 13 Ways videos, which is about what makes a vibrant community and by extension, a region. So what we're suggesting is that we structure a couple of things. One, that we refresh our operations manual, orientation manual, the one specific to our region. And well, because the existing one that we have makes no mention of meeting virtually, right? I mean, for number one. And for number two, there's been an evolution of the way that we do business. So that's the first thing. We don't think the handbook or the videos require updating. And I guess I'm looking for feedback on the orientation sessions, what you found helpful and what you would have liked to see that perhaps you didn't see. And maybe I'll leave that question hanging for right now, Madam Chair, and Kelly and I'll take some notes.
Yeah, good. Anybody have any comments on what worked when they first came on and what they found helpful under their orientation, or things that could be improved on? Mine was different because mine was one-on-one with Dawn, because I came on midterm. So I guess I was fortunate where I had the time to, ask as many questions as I wanted and get kind of the rundown of how business was handled. I enjoyed the 13 Ways to Kill Your Community. That book for me it was a good read, and I did find it helpful. I think you guys are referencing maybe just doing our iceberg is melting going forward, or?
No, actually, I think both. So the iceberg, I think, is going to be very relevant very quickly.
Yeah.
And when the province issues their green paper on local government reform, what we're going to see is, and what we've already started to see is people from unincorporated areas feel threatened by this, and so they're opposing the content of the green paper before we even know what the content is. Smaller municipalities, some smaller municipalities are concerned, particularly those that are handy larger centers, they're concerned about forced amalgamation. And so they're coming out and they're against what's in the green paper, even though we don't know what's in it yet. So, and although both of those things are going to be addressed in some way, so I think it's timely to, give the new board the book in the same presentation, and people will make up their mind. The board collectively will make up its mind where it stands on the suggested recommendations, and that's what the provincial government wants. But I think this will help prepare the directors to consider it in sort of a less threatening way. The 13 Ways is, I think, more appropriate post-orientation when we ask the new board in the environment of, we'll have some idea of what the changes in local government might be. When I want to get a consultant to come in and work with us to develop a 4-year strategic plan. In other words, one that covers the term of this board, so that collaboratively we can decide how we want to respond to these changes, and what is in them that is opportunities for us and threats for us, and
SWOT analysis.
Yeah. So I think they both have a place. But from my perspective, which is largely operational, my rush is to have folks well enough versed to to be able to participate actively in the budget process. I had an opportunity once. When I worked for the city, there was an election, I think it was 4 terms ago, where there was quite a few new board members came on, new councilors, came on. And this culture developed of these people were called new councilors, the new councilors this and the new councilors that. And I didn't like it. And it was, councilors with more tenure trying to lever off that to sort of guide the new ones along, but in not a charitable way. And so I want to make sure that anyone new who comes on the board can quickly see themselves as an equal to someone who's been on the board for some time. But I just think that's healthy.
Agreed.
So that's our plan. And if the committee's okay with that, I would ask you to, at the February meeting, to offer the 2 resolutions that I've identified in the staff report. The first one being directing staff to update our orientation handbook to reflect current practice, and to develop the orientation process, and further resolve that the staff integrate an analysis of the expected green paper, because that should be out. So I'd like you to task us with making sure that's part of the orientation, and the publication, Our Iceberg is Melting.
Madam Chair, just a question on the first. Would we not be, as a committee, making motions for these to be dealt with as motions at that meeting?
Yes.
So would we go back and do the first motion, the one that moved the board of adopt the procedural bylaws P8 and the procedural bylaw P7 dated May 28th be repealed? Should we do that?
That'll get done at the general board meeting.
So it's
Right
not
now, they're
recommended
just
to the board?
recommendations.
Correct. So we're recommending that the board adopts these at the next meeting.
So would we not do that by motion?
I think it's just
Not
consensus.
today.
Is there any questions or comments on the 2 resolutions that we're bringing forward to the next meeting on the orientation package? We all in consensus then with Don's recommendations on moving forward with that?
Yes.
Yeah.
I am.
Fully in agreement.
Excellent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So that's the end of our suggestions for you. We always have all of our agendas for committees include general discussion and direction from staff. So we've come to the end of a quite a unique year. I think the board has responded well to getting involved in the virtual world. I do want to let you know that I had planned to take an entirely different approach for this meeting, and not through Zoom, but through Teams, which some of you use in your municipalities. I believe New Maryland and Oromocto do. But Microsoft has, it has its own Zoom. But in addition to Zoom, it's much easier to share documents. There's no more email of 10 meg files. People who are, let's call it, in the club, you'd be able to go and get your package. We'd send you a note, the package is ready. You click a button, there it is. But what I've come to realize is that we're just too close to the end of the term of this board to do that. And so I'm going to take the time, when I say I mean us collectively, because there's not just me involved in it. But we're going to take the time to have that in place for the new board when the new board comes in. But candidly, I think you should feel real good about as an organization how you adapted to pretty dramatic and sudden change, and continue to provide service to all of your constituents, with the exception of that brief period of time we had to sort of retreat from recycling. So I think you should be proud of the year that you had.
Any other questions, comments before we adjourn? If not, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So move. I'll second it. Judy.
It's been moved in second. On the question, all in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you, folks.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. Dawn, when everybody leaves, could you stay on just for a minute so I could ask you a question?
Yes, certainly.
Thank you.
Stay safe, everybody.
Good night.
Good evening, everybody.